Before anything else, stop for a moment. Breathe. Now answer honestly. How many times have you tried to silence your mind without success? If the answer is many, you're not alone. In fact, you're exactly where millions are right now, trapped in an invisible cell made not of bricks, but thoughts. And here's the strangest part. This cell has a voice, one that never stops talking, that speaks when you wake, that criticizes when you try, that judges when you feel. This is the mental voice, and you've been hearing it your entire life. But what most people never realize is that voice isn't you, if you're ready to discover where it comes from. And what happens when you stop obeying it? Keep going. Comment now. I am not the voice. If this has already stirred something inside you, this could mark the beginning of your transformation. This voice knows you, or rather, pretends to know you. It echoes familiar phrases. It predicts what might go wrong. It reminds you of your mistakes from 5 years ago. But don't be fooled. It's not wise. It's programmed. A collection of everything others told you about yourself, starting from childhood. It's the echo of inherited fears, absorbed judgments, unresolved wounds. And the more you listen to it, day after day, the more you begin to see yourself through its filter. What it says becomes your identity. But what if it's all just repetition? What if you could break the cycle, keep watching, and if that voice starts screaming while you listen, know this, it means we're getting close. No one is born hearing that voice. It's not there when you arrive in this world. What exists in the beginning is silence, curiosity, and presence. A baby doesn't think, it feels. It simply observes. But then, something changes. Slowly, external voices start stitching the fabric of your mind. Parents, teachers, religion, friends, media, internet. Every word, every correction, every label, all of it weaves together into what becomes your inner voice. But it isn't yours. It's a patchwork of other people's voices. Yet since no one teaches us to question it, we grow up believing it's part of who we are. And it grows with us. It learns our weaknesses. It mimics our tone. Until one day, it becomes the official narrator of your life. But it doesn't represent you. It limits you. Comment now. It was taught to me, if this has become clear. This is where the mental prison begins. The moment you mistake the voice that judges you for your own conscience, the mind becomes a courtroom where you're accused, condemned, and punished every day by an invisible entity only you can hear. Have you noticed how that voice never gives you a break? How it wakes you in the middle of the night, replaying things you said years ago? How it analyzes every move, every flaw, every glance? It's not trying to protect you, it's trying to keep you controlled. But control of what? Your freedom to be, to act, to change. If something stirs inside you now, don't resist. That's your real self, starting to awaken. At some point, everything shifts. Not because the voice vanishes, but because a new question arises. If I'm hearing this voice, then who's the one listening? That's when the internal structure begins to collapse. Your whole life was built on the belief that this voice was you, but now something else is observing. There's space between what's said and what's perceived, a silent space, yet intensely alive. That space is you, not the voice, but the witness, not the noise, but the silence behind it. When this realization dawns, something within expands. It's like waking up inside a dream and seeing that everything was being narrated by something that isn't you. Comment now. I am the space, if this resonated. That one phrase begins to transform the way you relate to your own mind. The mind fears this space because it can't control it, label it, or manipulate it. This space is pure presence, and presence is power. The mental voice can only survive if fed with constant attention. But when you observe the voice without identifying with it, it begins to lose strength. It starts to quiet down, and for the first time, silence is not emptiness, it's wholeness. And the most surprising thing, this silence isn't something you create. It's always been there, buried beneath layers of thought. The mental voice has always spoken over it. But now you begin to hear what's always existed beyond the noise. And what comes next is even more profound. Now that you've started observing the mental voice from the outside, something curious happens. You begin to notice the pattern, the repetition. The voice always replays the same themes, the same fears, the same judgments, as if it were trapped in an old script, unable to improvise. And that's exactly what it is. The mind repeats because it doesn't know how to create the new, only recycle the old. This is when many discover what I call the mind's labyrinth. You walk through it trying to find an exit, but every time you think you've made progress, you end up back where you started. Because it's not a maze meant to be solved. It's built to keep you running in circles. Comment now. I see the pattern if you've already noticed this loop. This is one of the most important keys to escaping the cycle. Inside this maze, the voice disguises itself as logic, concern, common sense, but its true fuel is fear. Fear of failing, of being rejected, of not being loved, of not being enough. And as long as you respond to it, trying to convince, please, or control, you're reinforcing the very walls that trap you. But there is a way out, and it's not through effort, it's through surrender. You don't leave the maze by finding a path, but by stopping, by simply observing, by no longer reacting, but listening. That's when the map reveals itself. And what once felt like an endless cycle becomes a doorway, but only if you're truly willing to stop. When you finally stop, something subtle happens. At first, it may feel like just a pause, an absence, but if you remain there without chasing the next thought, you'll begin to notice that this silent space is actually the most present thing of all. It's right there, in the precise gap between one thought and the next, that you can find yourself, not as an idea, not as an identity, but as pure awareness, living presence. It's a silence that doesn't disturb, it embraces, an emptiness that doesn't threaten, it supports. The ego will try to resist. It will tell you it's dangerous to stop, that you should be doing something, thinking something, controlling something. But what if the real danger is never stopping? Comment now. I am the space between thoughts, if this made sense to you. Whispering this phrase might become your anchor the next time the mind tries to pull you back. This is the space where everything begins to shift. You realize you don't need to chase answers anymore, because in silence, the questions dissolve. Fear loses its grip, and a new kind of knowing arises. Not logical, intuitive, organic. You don't need to understand, you just feel it. This is the place you've always been but had forgotten, because the mind makes noise. But the truth, it whispers, and it can only be heard by those brave enough to stop. Now imagine, just for a moment, that your mind functions like an operating system, invisible lines of code running in the background, conditions, triggers, automatic reactions. You didn't choose this system. It was installed without a manual, without warning, without consent. And the mental voice is the interface, the one that translates hidden commands into familiar words. Every time you blame yourself, sabotage yourself, or compare yourself, it's not really you thinking. It's the code running. Automatic thoughts, recycled emotions, a program that's been operating for years, maybe decades. And most people live like this, functioning like machines that believe they're free. But now, something in you has awakened. You've started reading the code. Comment: the program doesn't define me. If this sparked something inside you. That sentence marks the exact moment the system begins to lose control. This program is sophisticated. It learns from your experiences. It mimics your voice, your fears, your memories. And that's exactly why it feels so convincing. But it can only exist as long as you feed it with belief. Pure observation already begins the uninstall process. You don't need to fight the program, just refuse to obey it. Reject the command. Allow silence to take the place of repetition. And when that happens, you don't become someone new. You return to who you've always been, before the code. When you stop listening to the mental voice, the world doesn't go quiet. It becomes clear. What used to be buried under judgments and interpretations starts to appear as it truly is. Simple, alive, present. The taste of food changes. The sound of rain hits differently. The gaze of another person is seen without filters. And most importantly, you start to see yourself. Not as the character created by the program, but as the one silently watching the character. The clarity that rises in this space doesn't come from thought. It comes from the absence of it. You feel a lightness not tied to circumstance, but to the freedom from noise. Comment now. Clarity came with silence. If this is happening inside you, that phrase is a milestone, a reminder, an anchor. At this point, what many call intuition begins to show up more often, but not as a voice, as silent knowing, a trust without explanation, a certainty that doesn't shout, but simply is. Life begins to flow more naturally, not because everything becomes easy, but because you stop resisting. You step out of control and into presence. The mental voice may still appear, but now you know. It speaks, but it doesn't command. It shows up, but it doesn't decide. You are no longer a prisoner. You are presence. Now, in this moment when your breath slows and the mind seems more distant, an inevitable question arises. Which voice are you listening to right now? Is it still the old, repetitive, conditioned one? Or is something new emerging from the silence? This question is not meant to be answered quickly, it's meant to be felt. Because every time it's asked sincerely, it can slice through the noise like a blade of light cutting fog. Let this question stay with you. Let it echo when the old pattern tries to return. And if something moved inside you at the end of this chapter, write in the comments. I'm listening from a new place. Because only those who've truly started to listen can recognize the moment the voice stops commanding and the self finally begins to live. If this journey resonated with you, if something started to quiet within you during this video, then this is just the beginning. Like this video, not as a reflex, but as a signal of presence. Share it with someone who's trapped inside their own mind and may not even know it. Subscribe to the Psychedelic Tear channel to keep exploring this awakening silence. Here, in every video, we don't offer ready-made answers, we offer doors. And each time you step through one, something old inside you dissolves, and something real begins to breathe. The truth never needed to shout. It doesn't compete with noise. It waits for the moment when the noise becomes unbearable. Waits for you to grow tired of running from yourself. And when that moment comes, it reveals itself. Without fanfare, without violence, just presence. That's where the real you lives. Not what they told you, not what you believed, but what has always been behind it all. The observer, the space, the silent witness. And now that you've made it here, know this. You are no longer at the mercy of the mental voice. You recognize it. And that recognition is freedom. If this video brought you to this point, write in the comments, I hear the silence. Because this silence is not absence, it is home. The point of return. The place where everything begins again. Here, where the veil begins to tear.